At the bottom of page 82, 82, you've got this thing called the personal a, la a personal. Strange little concept in Spanish. But what you have to know is, for the grammar here, the way it works, you've got two things in a sentence you've got to be aware of. The person who does the action of the verb, and the person or thing that gets the action done to it, or him or her. The person who does the action is called the subject. So when your teacher says, what's the subject of a sentence? You say it's the person or thing that does the action of the verb. When your teacher says, what's the object of a sentence? And you say, well, the object is the one that gets the action of the verb. It receives the action of the verb. Now, there's not always an object in a sentence, but a lot of times there is an object. And whenever the object in a sentence is a person, Spanish tells us that we have to put an a in front of it. It doesn't translate to English, has nothing to do with English, and there's not a word there that you can put in that place. When you see it, you just pretend it's not there when you bring it over into English. But when you go from English into Spanish, you got to remember, think about if the verb is acting on a person. If it is, then you've got to put an a in front of the person. That's what that whole part on the bottom of page 82 explains to us. Page 83, a little bit of practice with, first of all, just some matching of sentences. And you'll see some use of the a in certain of these cases. And then letter B is going to be where we have to look in and see if a goes in there or not. Letter A, Práctica A, column A versus column B. Number 1, nosotros tenemos, we have, letter H is the answer, muchos amigos puertorriqueños. We have many Puerto Rican friends. Número 2, Miguel llama, Michael calls, letter J, a su novia por la tarde. Michael calls his girlfriend in the afternoon. There's an a in front because the action is call. Michael's doing the calling. He's the subject. Who's he calling? He's calling a person, a su novia. So a has to go in there. The a doesn't translate. It doesn't have any translation into English. It's just a way for Spanish to mark that a person is the object. Número 3. Yo escribo. I write. A is the answer. El informe para mi clase de historia. The report for my history class. Now I'm writing a report. The report's the object, but it's not a person, so you don't need an a in front of it. Número 4. Mi novia lleva. My girlfriend, mi novio lleva. My boyfriend takes, letter C, a su mamá a la biblioteca. Takes his mom to the library. Mom's a person being taken to the library, so the a goes in front of that. Número 5. Yo debo llamar. I should call, letter E, un taxi. I should call a taxi. Número 6. Los niños necesitan, letter B, a su mamá. Children need their mother. Need verb acting on the mom. A su mamá is the correct answer there. 7. El profesor Paz tiene, letter G, 100 estudiantes en su clase. You just don't use the a after tener typically, which is what you're going to read down there anyway in the information. Because tener kind of acts on a person, but doesn't really act. It's a little bit different than the rest of the kinds of verbs, I guess. So you notice that Profesor Paz tiene, he has 100 students, but you don't put an a in front of that. You don't need to. Número 8. Yo recibo, letter D, muchos mensajes electrónicos. I receive many electronic messages, or a lot of electronic messages. 9. El doctor Peña debe llamar. Dr. Peña should call, letter F, a sus pacientes. Patients are people, so a sus pacientes. 10. Nosotros invitamos, letter I, a nuestros amigos a la fiesta. The first a there is the personal a. It's going in front of our friends, because they're people being invited. Being invited. And the second a la fiesta, that's just the a that means to the party. Letter B, use the personal a when needed to complete the following exchanges. So we got to figure out, does it go in or not? All you got to do is look for if the verb is acting on a person. Number 1, tu amigo lleva, does your friend take Rosa a la biblioteca? Is he taking Rosa to the library? There's an a goes in there because Rosa is a person. No, lleva a su novia. No, he's taking his girlfriend. So a goes in there too because he's taking her in both those cases, number 1. Number 2, ¿cuántos compañeros de cuarto tienes? How many roommates do you have? Tengo dos compañeros de cuarto. That's the word tengo. You look back over in the notes on page 82 at the bottom, you don't have to use the personal a after tengo, tener, any form of tener. So no a number 2. Número 3, ¿usted llama a Amelia o a Rogelio? Are you calling Amelia or Rogelio, Roger? A goes in both those cases because you're calling a person in either case. Llamo a Rogelio. I'm calling Roger. A goes in front of Rogelio because again you're calling a person. 4. Rafael lleva a su novia. a tomar algo? Is Rafael taking his girlfriend out to eat or to drink something? And there's an a in there because he's taking her. The verb's acting on a person, so a has to go in front of the person. Sí, lleva a su novia y a Mariana. Yes, he's taking his girlfriend and Mariana. Again, in English, that doesn't exist. We don't have an a in front of either one, but in Spanish they do. Both of those carry a. Número 5. ¿A dónde lleva usted los libros? Now the books are being taken or carried someplace. They aren't people. So, no a. ¿A dónde lleva usted? Where are you taking los libros, the books? The answer, a la biblioteca, to the library. Número 6. ¿Qué lees? What are you reading? Leo mi libro de español. I'm reading my Spanish book. No a there because the book isn't a person.